Okay, today we're going to learn how to do bump bending on ETS3000. What I'm going to show you on this video is going to be relevant to version 6.7. If you have version 7, it's slightly different, but approximately the same thing has to happen. It's in a slightly different order. We're going to start by going to make a new job, and to do bump bending, we need to do this in drawing mode. And in this version, they make us pick tools first. In version 7, you pick them later. So at any rate, we're going to pick some tools. I'm going to pick some that I use often. Okay. Oops. There we go, 5. Hit enter to select that tool. I'm not going to use the RAM extension, so I hit enter again to select that. My lower die, I'm looking for 8, 10 in this case. I'm choosing based on the V die opening. And for a bump bend, depending on the segment you're going to be doing, will determine what V opening you need, and of course your material thickness too. So in this case, 810, we'll use that one. Enter. And depending on your machine, edges typically don't use a die holder. In some of the other machines, you do have to select it. In this case, we are not. And do I want to add another tool set? For this example, no, just a single tool set will be enough. Okay, we don't need to do anything in this screen, so we can hit next. And this is showing oddly on my screen. Yours won't be showing black, but you enter this information. In version 7, you do this first. Version 6, you do it like you see in this video. So I'm going to take the default name. I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to move to the next column. This is my material. If I hit enter, my dialog box opens. I will enter and select the material I want to use. Hit OK with that selected. And hit OK to close it. Now my gauge, I'm going to put 0.045 for some 18 gauge. A blank, I'm going to leave length, I'm going to leave alone. That's going to be calculated by the machine. I'll leave that. And in this example, I'm just going to leave it at 12 inches wide. This is the width of the bench. Okay, so we're going to go to next. Now I'm going to draw my shape. I'm going to do a simple 90-degree profile. It's going to have I'm going to put a 2-inch radius in it, but I'm going to first start by drawing my 2 lines that will show this 90 degrees. Okay, I'm going to enter again to drop my second point, move my side arrow to draw my next point. Okay, I'm all set now. I just drew my rough shape, and I'm going to hit the next button. And now I got to dimension the lines. So I'm using an outside to outside, which is almost the default most of the time. It's telling me what the line is now. I'm going to go and change it and make what I want it to be. I'm going to make this 2.5, and I'll explain why later. Okay, and I'm going to leave the corner at 90, and I'm going to make this line 2.5. Okay, so my lines are all dimensioned. Now I'm going to create the bend. I'm going to make a 2-inch radius, okay, on this piece. So the radius will fill in where these lines are now. You'll notice I made my lines 2.5 inches long. The reason I do this is if I want a 2-inch radius part, I do need some extra meat on either side of this, at least for the program, so that I don't get an error in my program. And you'll see this as I continue. Okay, so I'm done dimensioning. What I'm going to do now is I got my left and right arrows, and I'm going to hit my left arrow back once, and that's going to highlight that corner. Okay, so this corner lights up. You'll notice that the bump is enabled. You'll see this will be ungrayed. I'm going to switch off of it real quick, and you'll see how the bump is grayed out. And I come back to that point, and you'll see the bump is highlighted. So now I can do my bump mode. So I've selected my corner where I'm going to put my radius, and now I'm going to hit my bump feature. Okay, I have a window that opens up here, and 3 basic things it needs to know. My radius I'm going to do, I'm going to put 2.0, okay, and my frequency. Basically, how many bends do I want to do to accomplish this 2-inch radius. I'm going to make it 12 in this example. I don't want to make it too rough. It looks very faceted. You'll decide over experience and practicing with this how much you really need. depending on your part you're going to do. Next is the angle. That's been determined by the drawing that we made. So it's all set. So we hit enter, and I'm going to hit OK, and it'll come up with my tool that I'm using here, and it gives you a maximum V opening. To say don't use anything over this. And we're using the 393, and that's good for this 18 gauge. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, so you see how it modified my part now. It created these little individual facets, which are highlighted here by these long lines. Those are our individual bumps. Now, if I was doing a 2-inch radius and I didn't give it extra here, let me highlight this, like this segment here. If I don't give it that extra at the beginning and the end, I do the same amount of segments, it's going to try to put a bend right at the end, which would be impossible for the machine to do because there's not enough flange to span across the lower die. So this material here, I give it this extra just for the program. Your material still could end there. You just skip that bend. Okay, but to make the program work and not have an error, I have to add these. You can experiment that, see for yourself. So if I use my right arrow, I can step through the different bends, and you can see what it did essentially is it created a bunch of segments. A line, in this case, it's a length that's 2.285 long, and then another bend point, and it's bending it at 171 degrees. Another 0.285, 171. So it does that along this line and creates this radius. Does a pretty good job of calculating this. You may get a point where you do some runs and maybe it's a little open and your radius isn't as tight as it could be. You could come over here and adjust these numbers if you wanted. Okay, we'll take it as is, and we're going to hit the next button. Ask me if I want to do another profile, and I do not. And now we're going to do our sequence. Now, there's no sequence, so I'm going to hit auto right now. Okay, and what it did is it created our sequence. You can see here, bend 1 through 12, as you can see there. I'm going to use my left and right arrow to see the bends going through. The only thing you might have issue with this side is the back gauge side. This side is the operator side. So you don't want to be putting this part in the back gauge side. You can't gauge off of this. I need to gauge off an end like this. So what I'm going to do is go to my bend 1. So I'm going to come back down to bend 1. And I'm going to flip this. I'm going to gauge this backwards. Okay, so I'm going to hit flip X to make this go on this side. So it's going to gauge off of this side. So I'll hit flip X. That looks good. You can see here this little line indicates the part before we bent it. The darker one indicates after we bent it. So I flipped that one. That's fine and dandy. But now we've got to do our others. You can see, did the first one, but it didn't do the others. So I got to do each one of those. So we're going to go back. Step 1 is good. I'm going to hit flip X again on that one and keep going through all of them until they're all flipped. The newer version 7 will do this a little easier actually. I flip one, it'll flip them all. So now we're set. Now if I step through my bends, you see this is ideal for the back gauge. Gauging here, and every time you step up to get back gauge, will push it out and ready for its next position. And that's looking pretty good. And at this point, you're all programmed up. And here's where I want to point out. We're on the last step, 12. And remember how I said I add this extra material here. If I was going to bend this line 12, which is right here, I have material enough to span this. If I don't have this extra material, and I only made my program to indicate it's a 2-inch 90-degree pair of lines to put my radius on, and it'll put the lines, it'll try to put a bend on this last point, which it can't possibly do. There's no material to span across. So that's why we add this extra material. At this point, the program's finished. You would hit finish here, and you'd be ready to edit some other parameters or actually do your first test run. So that's it for this, and look forward to some more. Thanks.